In this final demo here of display templates, we're going to look at debugging display templates and a couple of my preferred methods. Let's go back to our properties page, and we used in a previous walkthrough, we took the results coming out of a content search web part as well as a search results web part, and using a custom control template and custom item template, we made standard results look cool and have some cool functionality. So let's go ahead and see what we can do to debug this. So I'm using Chrome here, but IE and Firefox are basically all the same. We can go ahead and hit the developer toolbar. Let's say we want to go into the source, and if we drill down to the display template in question, so remember we put everything in the master page gallery under demo properties display templates, and we'll see that I have my item template here. So if I load up my item template, I can now scroll through all of the JavaScript that was generated for me. And let's say I want to have a breakpoint. So I could put a breakpoint kind of wherever I want. So let's say I go ahead and break here. So this is about before I start creating HTML. I want to stop where we're at, and I want to be able to look to see what's going on. So if I set a breakpoint by just clicking on it, I refresh the page, and the browser is going to go through and it's going to stop where we're at. Excellent. So at this point, I can now really manipulate this data, right? I could look at it. I could hover over any variable to find out what the value of it is. Let's say one of the biggies, I want to know what's in context, CTX. If I hover over context, I can actually see all of the data that's available to me. This is all the data that my search, my web part, went and grabbed. So I could look at the current item. And if I look at the current item, these are all of the managed properties that are being returned to me. Here's where it gets really cool. Remember, in our item display template, that's where we specify the managed properties that we want to get back from our specific result that's being pulled. In our case here with the content search, everything's going to get really the same result. If we have that managed property listed and it is not being returned here, there's a problem. There's a problem with our typing. There's a problem with the managed property, the way it was configured. Maybe a full crawl hasn't happened over in SharePoint, and if you're on SharePoint Online like I am, it could take a long time to figure that kind of stuff out. So this is one of the best ways I have found to really quickly figure out why is a managed property not showing up, and even if it is, what's the value that's being returned. So if I had like this property image rollup OWS IMGE, what's actually being returned, and I can see what the actual value is that's getting returned. And maybe I thought it was just going to be the source. I didn't realize it's going to be the full image tag. Well, then I might need to have some JavaScript in there to go strip out all of the extra stuff if all I wanted was in the source. So that's one really cool way to debug if you like debuggers. Personally, I'm just not a big debugger fan that way. I found another cool thing you can do is you can use console log. I'm a big proponent of console log because it's kind of quick and simple, and it just displays just what I want. I don't have to drill into the debugger. It doesn't have breakpoints, I get that, but it still can tell you kind of state. So let's go and look at the demo item mixup. That's the item display template that we're using for all the results. So I can go ahead, and I've already checked it out. I can edit it. And at the bottom, I went ahead and I added in a whole bunch of console logs that's going to print out a whole bunch of variables. So I'm just going to uncomment it out here. So I'm going to go grab that current item that we were just looking at. I'm going to then print out the word image to kind of give me a break stop. And then I'm going to look at the variables that I might have set up above. And then under type, I'm going to look at property type. So if we use the console log method, which I admit is a little more simple. I mean, it's not nearly as advanced, but I still think it can be very useful for certain projects. I can go ahead and refresh this. And if I go to the console log, I can see all that data gets dumped out. Now let's scroll all the way to the top. Now the first thing I printed out was the current item. So I can see here in Chrome at least, Chrome and Firefox do a really good job of this in the console log. I can get all of the variables that are being printed out. And I saw this in the debugger, but sometimes it just is helpful to be able to see things all printed out, all nice and neat. And I think that this can do a really good job. If I keep scrolling down, I can just get into the different values that were being sent back to me. And I can get different variables that I might have been sending, etc. So these are two methods I use. A third technique that you can use is definitely Visual Studio. You can use Visual Studio and IE. What you do is you add the word debugger to your display template. So what we would add is the word debugger. And in IE will see that, and it will start up your debugger, which would be Visual Studio. Visual Studio will now bind to all of this. It'll bind to your browser, and it will help you debug. I have personally found that that's only really good if you're doing really long, big debugging sessions. I have found with display templates, it's much easier to use just the built-in browser debugger or to use console logs. It just seems quicker and easier. I mean, Visual Studio can take a long time to load up in my experience when trying to do this. So hopefully that gives you a good idea on how to do some quick debugging of basically using the debugger or console log to get into the different JavaScript variables and different JavaScript values that are being delivered by the display templates.